Picture this. You did the responsible thing. You opened a savings account. You put money in it every month. You didn't touch it. You did everything the basic financial advice told you to do. And now you've got $5,000 sitting there. Maybe $8,000, maybe $10,000. And it feels good. It feels safe. It feels like you're finally ahead. But here's the uncomfortable question nobody asks you. What is that money actually doing while it sits there? Because if your savings account is earning the national average interest rate, which as of recent years has hovered around 0.4 to 0.6% for traditional bank savings accounts, your $10,000 is earning somewhere between $40 and $60 per year. That's it, $40 to $60 for an entire year of your money, sitting there doing nothing. And here's where it gets worse. Inflation, the rate at which the cost of everything you buy goes up, has averaged around 3% per year over the long term, some years higher, some years lower, but roughly 3% on average, which means the purchasing power of your $10,000 is shrinking by approximately $300 per year, every year, silently, without any notification from your bank. You are earning $50. You're losing $300. The net result is your savings account is costing you roughly $250 per year in real purchasing power, and the longer your money sits there, the bigger that loss compounds. Here's what most people don't realize. A savings account doesn't protect your money from inflation. It just makes the loss feel invisible. My name is Jack. If you have money sitting in a savings account and you've never stopped to question whether that's actually the smartest place for it, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Let's talk about what's actually happening to your money and what to do about it. Part 1. Understanding the inflation problem. Inflation is the single most misunderstood concept in personal finance. Most people think of it as prices going up. And yes, that's what it looks like from the outside. But from the inside, from the perspective of your money, inflation is your purchasing power going down. Here's a simple example. 10 years ago, $100 bought a certain amount of groceries. Today, that same $100 buys noticeably less. The dollars didn't disappear, but what they can buy did. That gap between the number in your account and what that number can actually purchase is the real cost of inflation. Now here's where the savings account problem becomes clear. If inflation is running at 3% per year and your savings account is paying 0.5% per year, you're losing 2.5% of your purchasing power every single year. On $10,000, that's $250. On $20,000, that's $500. On $50,000, that's $1,250 every year, just sitting there. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks this through what's called the Consumer Price Index. And when you compare historical CPI data against historical savings account interest rates at traditional banks, the savings account has lost the race to inflation in the vast majority of years over the past 2 decades. Your bank is not keeping your money safe from inflation. Your bank is keeping your money safe from market volatility. Those are two very different things. And confusing one for the other is costing people thousands of dollars over time. Part 2. The compounding cost nobody shows you. Let's make this concrete with actual math, because the numbers are more alarming than most people expect. Imagine 2 people. Both start with $10,000. Person A puts it in a traditional savings account, earning 0.5% annually and leaves it for 20 years. Person B puts it in a broad market index fund, earning a historical average of 7% annually and leaves it for 20 years. After 20 years, Person A has approximately $11,050. Their $10,000 grew by just over $1,000 in 2 decades. Meanwhile, inflation over those same 20 years at 3% annually means their $10,000 in purchasing power terms is now worth the equivalent of roughly $5,500 in today's dollars. They didn't just fail to grow their money. They lost nearly half its real value. Person B, after the same 20 years, has approximately $38,700. Their $10,000 nearly quadrupled. After accounting for the same 3% inflation, their real purchasing power is still roughly $21,400 in today's dollars, more than double what they started with. Same starting amount, Same 20 years, completely different outcomes. The only difference is where the money lived. Research from Vanguard analyzing investor outcomes over multi-decade periods consistently found that the single biggest determinant of long-term wealth accumulation was not picking the right stock, not timing the market, not finding a clever strategy. It was simply staying invested in low-cost broad market funds over long periods of time. The math compounds in your favor when you're in the right vehicle. It compounds against you when you're not. Part 3. When a savings account is the right tool now. Before you go moving every dollar you have into investments, let's be clear about something important. A savings account is not always the wrong tool. It is just often the wrong tool for the wrong job. A savings account is the right tool for 3 specific purposes: emergency fund, short-term goals, and money you will need within the next 1 to 3 years. Your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, belongs in a savings account, not because it earns great returns, but because it needs to be accessible immediately when something goes wrong. If your emergency fund is invested in the stock market and the market drops 30% the same week your car needs a $2,000 repair, you have a serious problem. Safety and accessibility matter more than returns for this specific money. Short-term goals, a vacation you're saving for, a down payment you need in 18 months, a home repair fund, also belong in savings or similarly safe instruments. Money with a defined short-term purpose shouldn't be exposed to the volatility of the stock market because you may need it before the market has time to recover from a downturn. But money beyond those 2 categories, money you won't need for 5 or more years, belongs somewhere that actually grows. And a traditional savings account is not that place. Here's the framework. Ask one question for every dollar you have saved. When do I need this money? If the answer is within 3 years, savings account is appropriate. If the answer is 3 to 5 or more years, you're leaving real money on the table by keeping it in savings. Part 4. High-yield savings accounts. Before we talk about investing, there's a middle option worth understanding. High-yield savings accounts. Unlike traditional savings accounts at big banks, which pay 0.4 to 0.6%, high-yield savings accounts, typically offered by online banks, have in recent years paid anywhere from 4 to 5% annually, depending on the interest rate environment. On $10,000, that's $400 to $500 per year instead of $40 to $60. Still not beating long-term inflation perfectly, but dramatically better than a traditional account. For your emergency fund and short-term savings, a high-yield savings account is almost always a better option than a traditional one. The money is still FDIC insured up to $250,000, meaning it's just as safe. It's still liquid, meaning you can access it when needed. It just earns significantly more while it waits. The main banks offering competitive high-yield rates include online first institutions that have lower overhead than traditional banks and pass those savings to customers in the form of higher interest. Switching your emergency fund to a high-yield account takes about 15 minutes online and requires no minimum balance at most providers. This isn't a solution to the inflation problem for long-term money, but for the money that needs to stay safe and accessible, it's a meaningful improvement over what most people currently have. Part 5. Where long-term money actually belongs for money you won't need for 5 or more years. Retirement savings, long-term wealth building, financial independence. The historical evidence points overwhelmingly toward broad market index fund investing. The S&P 500 in the index tracking the 500 largest U.S. companies has returned an average of approximately 10% annually before inflation over its entire history. After adjusting for inflation, that real return has averaged roughly 7%. Over any 20-year period in the S&P 500's history, the index has been positive, every single one. That doesn't mean the market goes up every year. 2008 was devastating. 2020 saw a historic crash. There are years that genuinely hurt. But for money with a long enough time horizon, the market has consistently rewarded patience in a way that no savings account ever has or ever will. The vehicle most accessible for everyday investors is a broad market index fund, something that tracks the total U.S. stock market or the S&P 500. Low cost, expense ratios as low as 0.03% at major providers like Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab. tax advantage when held inside a Roth IRA or 401k, and historically one of the most reliable wealth-building instruments available to regular people. The simple rule: emergency fund and short-term money, high-yield savings account, long-term money, broad market index fund inside a tax-advantaged account. Part 6. The Action Plan. Here's what to actually do after this video. Step 1. Find out what interest rate your current savings account is paying. Log in and look. If it's below 1%, you have a traditional savings account at a traditional bank. You are losing the inflation race every single day. Step 2. Calculate how much of your savings is true emergency fund versus long-term money you won't need soon. Be honest. Most people discover a larger portion of their savings is long-term money than they realized. Step 3. Move your emergency fund to a high-yield savings account if you haven't already. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses there. Leave it accessible. Let it earn a real rate while it waits. Step 4. Any money beyond your emergency fund that you won't need for 5 or more years, open or add to a Roth IRA or 401k and invest it in a low-cost broad market index fund. Set up automatic monthly contributions. Let compounding do what it does over time. Step 5. Stop checking your investment account daily. Long-term investing requires patience, not monitoring. The people who build wealth in the market are the ones who invest consistently and then leave it alone, not the ones who watch it every morning. Here's the bottom line: your savings account is not keeping your money safe. It is keeping your money comfortable while inflation quietly reduces what it can buy year after year. Real safety for long-term money means keeping pace with inflation at minimum and ideally growing beyond it. And the only way to do that over long periods of time is to put that money to work in assets that actually grow. The responsible thing isn't just to save. The responsible thing is to save in the right place for the right purpose. If this video helped you see what's actually happening to your savings, hit the subscribe button, give this a thumbs up, and comment below. How much of your money is currently sitting in a traditional savings account, earning almost nothing? Let me know, because the first step to fixing it is being honest about where things actually stand.